Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real World Productivity Podcast. The title of today's interview is Efficient Arbitrage, Improving Yourself and Your Business. My name is Adam Moody, and today I'm talking with the life success engineer, Kevin Blackburn, about his background in productivity and online business, along with some of the tips, methods, and strategies that I believe every entrepreneur should know to hopefully shortcut their way a little bit to success with productivity and as well to get some great results faster. So first of all, welcome, Kevin.
For inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and talk productivity and arbitrage.
Outstanding. Well, I'm just going to pretty much jump right into it. My first set of questions is basically about you and your background and experiences. It kind of pertains to productivity so that people in the audience can get a better understanding of who you are, where you're coming from, and how they can relate. So if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of however much you feel like sharing with people, but education or experience, and maybe as anything that pertains to productivity as well?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so it's been a pretty crazy 3 years since 2015. I became an electrical engineer in 2014 after studying here at university for like 8 years. And then I came across an opportunity called Amazon FBA and online arbitrage. So what basically happened was I had studied all those years to become an engineer. I'd become an engineer, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It wasn't the job, the role. It didn't turn out exactly what I thought I was going to be able to do in my life. And when I come across online arbitrage, I basically thought this is a fantastic opportunity for me to create a different way of living, of freedom, because at the time, being an engineer, I was always at work and emails, etc. So I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try making this side business work. And straight away, from a productivity point of view, obviously, that comes with challenges. I had a 6-month-old daughter at the time, and I was working full-time, as well as now starting this business online part-time. All of a sudden, the lifestyle was extremely jam-packed. So straight away, I knew productivity was so important. And I'm looking forward to sharing how that sort of that time period played out, because I knew the time I wasn't at work, I knew I had to absolutely maximize what I was doing. And fast forward to today's date, I quit my job within 6 months. I started to recruit virtual assistants. I started to recruit physical employees. We moved out of our living room, finally into a warehouse. And today, I'm completely extracted from the business and now growing my brand, Life Success Engineer, on my YouTube channel and blog. So it's been quite a journey.
That's amazing. Also, 6 months from quitting job to that, like that's really cool. And one, congratulations. I obviously I know a little bit about you, but I didn't know that. I mean, 6 months is incredibly short. That's pretty impressive.
I was all in.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Jumping both feet. Well, that's interesting too. You mentioned something about your experience as an engineer, and I'm curious. I was talking to somebody recently about this. They said that when they made that kind of transition, that once you start on your own, you come to that point where you realize nobody's, asking you about a report. Nobody's telling you about a deadline. It's all up to you. And if you miss a deadline, it's 100% you. I'm curious, did you ever feel like you had to learn some of that? Or, I mean, you seem like a pretty self-motivated person, but did you ever think about that?
I didn't, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. It was basically because once you quit your job, and once all of a sudden you're free from your job and you don't have that, I guess, the next paycheck coming in, mm-hmm. It gives you an incredible amount of urgency to make it happen. And at the time, when I first started in the June of 2015, my daughter was actually only 6 months old. So by the time I handed my notice in the December of 2015, I knew I've got a 1-year-old, I've got a child, I've got a home with my partner. That gave me an incredible amount of urgency. So I've been incredibly motivated since the day I became free to keep creating, to keep progressing, keep making the life that ultimately I want.
Definitely. No, it makes sense. This isn't very podcast friendly, but I would say that that's, lighting a fire under your ass is a good way to do it.
Exactly. I mean, Tony Robbins would call it, you know, if you want to take on the island, burn your boats. Because if you cut off all ties of going back, I handed my notice in. I had, I believe, going back to 2016, I think it was like the 22nd of January. It was like Q1, which is the quietest time of the year. It was like, I've got to make it happen. And all of a sudden, it's amazing where you spend a lot of time. You spend so much time. Maybe I was watching maybe television and things, and all of a sudden, I've freed up all that time. I'm taking massive action to make it happen.
Outstanding. Well, then, question about that. Then, have you had any sort of formal training? I mean, as an electrical engineer, you definitely had some sort of, at least, you know, some, I'm trying to think back to university days, like studying, you know, here's how you get things done. But did you have anything as far as actual productivity or organization or time management, or has this just been stuff you pick it up on your own?
Yeah, I think as a student at university, I think that type of environment, you have to be organized, especially when you've got exams, you've got different lessons and classes. And because I did it part-time, a part of my career, I was 1 day a week. I knew I had to obviously make progress, study hard, and at the same time I was juggling like projects at work as well. So I think the nature of the job and the training that I got, it naturally, if you're not organized, if you don't have some sort of systems in place, and that's the brilliant thing about the career that I was in, electrical engineer. I was taught from an apprentice to think in systems. How can we systematize things? So it's been a huge benefit for me, and I believe it's one of the contributing factors why I've been able to grow so much so quickly.
Awesome. Well, something I read stood out. I saw that you had a lot of input on personal development from friends and family. So I'm curious, what was it that made you choose, though, on Amazon as your platform to go forward with?
It's a great little story, actually. It was basically we just watched a program called The Apprentice from Lord Alan Sugar here in the UK, and one of the challenges was spend £10, and can you turn that £10 into however much that you can spend that you can turn that £10 into. So we did the little family challenge. And I purchased a couple of these little porcelain birds from a charity shop for like 75p each, and I ended up putting them on eBay. And I basically I sold those birds for about £8 at the time, so I basically made a bit more money. But the problem that I had was I was still at work at the time, and then I'd had to go to the post office to send those birds out. So that was a problem for me immediately because I couldn't get to the post office. And that's when I turned to Amazon FBA, because I could send everything to Amazon and they would deal with everything while I'm at work.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And I've heard that so much. I'm just full disclosure, I've never dealt with it. So I don't know much about it. I just know the bare bones, but that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think a lot of people probably, I'm guessing, got started that way, where they realized that if they can scale, you know, they try to scale and then reach that point where they're like, I can't do this. But yet you can succeed with FBA so long as the margin is there, I assume.
Exactly. I mean, just the fact that I was at work and Amazon would take care of all the shipping and customer service. I mean, it was a perfect scenario for me at that time.
Good deal. Well, like you said at the beginning, you've kind of extracted yourself out. You've built this business. How do you manage them? Do you have any, as far as tips or pointers? Or, I mean, as an engineer, you might have had a team, I don't know, but how do you go from maybe something smaller like that to, okay, now you're in charge of the business? What do you have as far as management structure?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that has been a gradual process over the last 3 years. Initially, as you can imagine, it was only just me. It was me doing absolutely everything from finance to legal to packaging and shipping. I was pretty much doing everything. And I very, very quickly, one of the things that I was very, very good at, and I call it my growth tasks. I call it, and I'm focused on my growth tasks even to this point today. I'm always focused in on, well, am I actually growing whatever task that I'm doing this day, today, right now, is this task is going to be a growth task and ultimately get me to the goal. So early on, very, very early on, when I was thinking, I can't be at the shops all day. I can't just go from one store to another, spending multiple hours every single day, which you've only got a certain amount of time in the day. So I was always thinking, how do I leverage myself? How do I bring more people in and do multiple tasks, basically by leveraging the amazing sort of services of virtual assistants and automated processes. So I was very, very quick to understand that if I just invested money into a virtual assistant, I could get a lot more done in a very, very quick period of time. And as I've grown, I've always focused on those growth tasks. So right at the beginning, it was, how do I create systems for every particular part of my business, whether it's sourcing, whether it's shipping. I would create procedures all day. One of my growth tasks was, I just want to create one procedure today. And then tomorrow I'd create another procedure. And after 3-4 months, you've all of a sudden got a huge library of all these procedures. So when you do start to recruit people, you're a systems-based business, which gives you an awful lot of advantages. And even then, you are communicating with your team through systems, not one-on-one firefighting. And it's such a huge pitfall, I guess, that people do get into, where they're trying to sort of the talk and through phone calls, emails all day. And when you create a procedure, it's so much more scalable.
Definitely. I'm a huge proponent of processes and systems. So I'm curious then about what you do, like what's your, everyone loves this, or most people do, to kind of geek out on like what the apps are, how they do it. So I'm just curious, like how do you create your processes now or your systems? Do you have a go-to, like, Todoist or a Google Doc or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I love my apps. I really do. I've basically, it's a funny thing because I do believe you've got to experiment with yourself. I do believe that obviously there's sort of, there is the getting things done and all these different systems, but I do think that each and every one of us have to tweak our systems. So I've gone from using just pen and paper and diaries, like get away from the computer altogether, to going back onto the computer. And for the past, I would say for the good 6 to 8 months, my apps have been Todoist, it's been Evernote, and it's also been fantastical as a calendar. And the brilliant thing is, because I use Macs, it's a perfect setup, and I absolutely love this. This is where I geek out a little bit. I have like split screens, so I've got I've got one desktop just for my calendar. Then I've got my Todoist up as well as my Evernote with like the two half desktops. And I see my monthly goals. I also see what my Todoist tasks are. So I feel like I'm incredibly productive every day because it's just organization.
That's awesome. I think that's a good one. I'm actually going to think about that. I like the idea of having the goals out in front of you. It's something I review kind of daily and go over like the 90-day type of goals. But I think just having that right there would be pretty handy. So
absolutely.
Cool. Well, how about as far as managing the team then? Do you have any tools that you use for that? And the systems run the team. And I understand that. I do it myself. Like once you have the systems in place, that's what does it. But so are you now fully in-house, or do you have remote workers still, I guess, is the first question.
Yes, we have a warehouse team here that actually do all the processing of the products. We also have a virtual team, a virtual sourcing team that's based in the Philippines, and then I have a senior team that's based in India. And how I manage all the different operations that I have now, because online arbitrage is only one component of that. I have extended into other streams, but I basically have I've got 2 weekly reports. That's what allows me to see an overview picture of everything. And I have a warehouse manager here. I also have a virtual team manager. And basically I have 2 reports sent to me every single Monday, which gives me a complete overview of operations. I can immediately see where maybe declining in performance. And I basically have set up a number of key performance indicators, which basically allows me to see immediately, is our shipping declining? Is our purchasing declining? Whatever it is. And then that allows me then to assign specific tasks to those managers through that week.
Definitely. I think that's a good one. I think anyone, no matter what you're doing, can take something from that. Having a good KPI report is super important. Again, I think it doesn't matter if you're a freelancer, you're running a warehouse, you're a VA yourself, or you're running a $50 million business. I think that really is some really good advice.
I think so too. I think that it's just because like numbers do not lie. I mean, number is that a good number or is it a bad number? And if it's a bad number, it gives you an area to focus on.
Definitely. Well, I'm curious about something that now that you've come all this way, if you could look back and say, Kevin, from before you got started, what do you wish you could go back and tell yourself? What to kind of speed up the process for productivity or time management?
Wow, great question. That's a fantastic question. I wish I prepared a little bit more for that question.
No, any answer is good. I'm just curious and not trying to pin you down. There's probably a ton of.
I think it always comes down to, for me, when I look back prior to 2015, or for me anyway, I would be at work all day, and work is tough. Work can be challenging, especially the environment that I was working in. It could be stressful, and then I would see the time at night just to sort of just sit and relax. And what I've really come to realize today, and I would say this I just wish I could go back. I would say that, if you're willing to commit 1 to 3, 5 years, just go all out, just take whatever action you need to take. For me anyway, I always thought when I turn 40 years old, I don't want to look back with regret. I'm going to go all in and I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to maybe not go out as much on the weekend. I'm going to maybe not watch this Netflix binge series right now, because we would watch everything. We would watch Dexter, Breaking Bad. We would just watch everything. And I became super, super aware that, wow, you know what? If I don't watch Dexter tonight, that's an hour. Like, what can I do with that hour? And that's the number one thing I would say. I'd go back and I'd just say, just take massive action. Like, if you can just make one step of progress each and every day, it's amazing how much your life can change.
Definitely. Yeah, those gains you make, if you're consistent, it really does start to stack up over time.
Compounds, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got one last question for you. And this one is another one that, you might feel I should have told you about before. But what one book, and I'm not going to hold you to it, it could be more than one book, but what book do you recommend the most to other people?
Wow, another great question. I've had so many books that have had a major impact in my life. 2 business books I would definitely recommend is Work the System by Sam Carpenter, and also The E-Myth Revisited. Those 2 books really allowed me to, right from the beginning, systematize the business and really think in systems to build that strong foundation, because I do believe that if I hadn't built strong foundations, we would absolutely I would be running around firefighting every single day. So that is from a business point of view. From a personal development point of view, again, great question. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, so I've been to his seminars. I've gone through his programs such as Ultimate Edge. I've read his book, Awaken the Giant Within. That's a great book. But I think one of the books I would probably say as well, there's a little book called U Squared. And I forget the author of it right now, but this U Squared, it basically talks about having quantum leaps in your life. It basically talks about, why do you have to go A, B, C, D, E? Why can you not go A to F? Why can you not make quantum leaps forward? And sometimes you can get yourself stuck in to the day-to-day tasks, and you can try to sort of bang your head up against the wall, if you just made a sideways step, then all of a sudden you make just a huge quantum leap. And there's many examples of that in my journey so far. So that's definitely a great book. It really awakens you up to, wow, just do quantum leaps. Always think, why do I have to, make incremental growth? Why can I not go straight from, and I think that's the reason why I've been able to quit my job within the 6 months. I was like, this doesn't have to be a long drawn out process. It doesn't have to take me 3 years. My business doesn't have to make a loss for 2 years before it's profitable. I can do all that like immediately.
That's amazing. That's a good one. And to be honest, I've never heard of it. So I'm definitely going to check out this book. This is part of my favorite part. I get to find out a bunch of awesome books to read. So
yeah,
awesome. Good cheers.
Great book.
Good deal. Well, we've got to wrap it up, but I wanted to first of all say thank you for a great interview. And where can people go, or where should they go to find out more about you or what you do? I'd let them know.
Yeah, you can find me. My brand is Life Success Engineer. I've got a YouTube channel. It's Life Success Engineer. I've also got a blog, lifesuccessengineer.com, and that is really where I put out a lot of content every day, just trying to help people with online arbitrage, but also productivity and general just life success, whatever that life success means to you. And that's why I wanted to integrate my past life, electrical engineer, to now my new life success engineer, to really just keep working towards whatever definition of success that I have. And that's why, I share my monthly goals reports. I share everything I do in my life, to be honest. So that's where you can find me.
Outstanding. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Kevin, and thanks for sharing everything with the audience.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.